are awakened. Come and join our love, it's so right if you could feel it.
Thank you for listening to the Awakened Radio Network at awakenedradio.net, where we invite you to join us for the Prosperity Game. You can win prizes. You can also discover the easy, quick, surefire ways to allow prosperity into your life experience. The Prosperity Games are ongoing on the Awakened Radio Network. Check out our front page, awakenedradio.net, for details on the Prosperity Game. You can win prizes by calling in, by being in our chat room. You can even win by leaving comments in our forum. We've got all manner of ways for you to join us to play the Prosperity Game, where we all win and live beautiful, wonderful, on-purpose lives. Join us for the Prosperity Games at awakenedradio.net.
Welcome. You are now tuned in to Your Unfolding Senses on Awakened Radio. I'm your host, Ragozzine. This show is all about opening to and listening to your full intuitive capabilities. I offer tips and techniques such as meditation, dream work, and more for relaxing and connecting to your intuition. I'm on the air Thursday at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. This show is brought to you by intuitionbyrob.net, helping you to connect to your own inner wisdom. Please enjoy the show and invite your friends. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It's 10 p.m., September 12th, 2013. Welcome to Your Unfolding Senses. I'm Rob Ragozzine, your host, author, and explorer. Your Unfolding Senses is about opening to your inner wisdom, and we're all intuitive. And it's time to stop dismissing your intuition. And on this show, we talk about the tools and techniques for centering, connecting inward, and learning to truly listen with a focus on you and helping you to find what methods help you to truly connect inward. So feel free to call in, ask questions, or comment on whatever works for you. You might ask about tarot, numerology, dreams, self-acceptance, or busyness, which we're discussing tonight. You can join us in the chat room at awakenedradio.net and click on the live chat tab, or join us on the air through Skype by adding Awakened Radio or dialing 334-649-7204. Now, as you know, this is all about connecting to your inner intuition, your inner life, and your heart. Essentially listening to your inner guidance, no matter your age, background, or ideology. Making room in your life for your inner voice to come through. And many of us haven't found a way to hear the messages that are already coming into our life. So paying attention to those billboards, coincidences, dreams, recurring numbers, or other patterns. Stepping out of being busy and making time to just notice. That's where it starts. When you start to notice your life and stop telling yourself that you have to be so busy. And in order to settle down tonight, we'll do a short meditation to help us enter space in which we feel better connected to our bodies, minds, spirit, and intuition. And as always, you might bring a question to mind that you've been wondering about. You might light a candle. And as we're talking about busyness tonight, you might ask a question about how can I slow down? How can I let go of those activities which aren't supporting me? Or whatever you feel called to ask. And then simply allow for a phrase, sound, word, or symbol to come to you during the meditation. Allow for whatever comes to come. It might be a sensation, it might be a memory of the past, whatever it is, let it come. Don't be afraid of it. So finding a quiet space and sitting or lying down comfortably and closing your eyes and beginning to breathe slowly and gently. Releasing any stress from the day, breathing deeply into your heart and into yourself. Let go of any doubts or worries. Let your mind quiet and your body rest. Feel yourself filling with peace and tranquility. Bring your focus to your heart and wonder, what has it been asking for? You may also wish to bring your hands to your heart. Allow your awareness of your heart to deepen and grow as you breathe. Settle into the stillness. Feel all of your senses open, grow, and deepen. Know that this is a special place where you can clearly hear your own inner voice, however it speaks to you. Continue breathing. Be mindful of how this space feels. You might open to the question now or notice messages available to you within this space. Your inner ears might hear a word or a phrase. Your inner eyes might see a color, shape, or picture. Your other senses might pick up on heat or tingling or a fragrance or something else. Just notice your sensations and your intuitions. Pay attention, and if you don't understand what they mean, ask for deeper clarity and allow for whatever comes to come. If nothing does, that's okay. Don't force anything to happen. Rest in the stillness and inner peace. This could be the very thing your heart has been yearning for. Notice how your body feels in this time of stillness. You may wish to breathe into the parts of your body that still feel tight or stressed, but allow yourself to feel comfort in this space. Have gratitude and be grateful for it, and know that you can come here anytime. Letting go of anything else that might need to let go of, and as we prepare to leave, have and feel gratitude for this connection and any messages you received. And when you're ready, slowly bringing your focus back to the room, gently opening your eyes and coming back to your body. Now tonight, we're talking about busyness, and last week we talked about habits. So as an aspect of busyness, I'm encouraging you to look at what habits that you engage in regularly keep you locked into being busy. And ask yourself, why are you busy? And maybe it's not that you're busy, maybe you're just tired and in a repetitive habit of doing all the things that you regularly do without questioning why. And that's what we're here tonight to do, is to ask why. Why are we doing it this way? And for most people, their busy schedules, as we call them, are self-imposed. They've taken on a lot of it voluntarily, classes, activities, social events that they're participating in, but they don't feel anything about it. Or they're busy because of ambition, drive, or anxiety. Whatever it is, it's probably because they're addicted to the actual actions of the busyness and fear what they might have to face or look into when they're not busy. And I was thinking about this for myself this week, and I'm the person who goes everywhere with a time for a cup of coffee. So I still pay attention to when my time feels overloaded and maxed out, but I don't stress about time management and scheduling. And most of my appointments, I guess, are probably on my phone. And I've never thought about it before. I guess I manage my time really by allowing the time for settling in and exploring. So I've baked it right in by having the time to get the cup of coffee. Who knows what might happen? I might meet someone, I might notice something. So anyway, think about what you do for your appointments, your scheduling, and see what it's covering over, see what it's connected to. And I've noticed that it's really connected to really exploring the world and seeing what might happen when I'm there, present and available in the moment. So just to begin to pay attention to your level of busyness. But what if you start to look at what the busyness is covering over, and that might be feeling emptiness. And most people, that could be a very big thing. And instead of feeling it, we fill it up with the emptiness, with thoughts, with activities. So rather than feeling, we're filling our time so we can't feel. And what's the cost? What's the value? It's really about doing, and that's become an addiction or a habit. And really, stress keeps us disconnected from ourselves. We're not feeling what we can feel. We're not connecting to our intuition because we're blocking it out. We don't want to sense anything. We don't want to be connected. And then the stress starts to interfere with our entire body. Stress hormones are sent out. Energy is directed away from the immune system. You can read all kinds of different books on this subject today. It's clearly there. We get anxiety. It causes us to react reflexively. Different parts of the brain are activated. Different parts of the brain are deactivated. So we think less, and we think less rationally. So when we're stressed, we're not thinking clearly. And that could be on an emotional, physical, and spiritual level. And when I'm feeling stressed, it's mostly connected to boredom. And I know it's time to look at what I'm doing, see if I'm truly engaged, see if I'm truly connected, and where I need to go to find the passion, the energy, the vitality. So that leads me to ask, what really matters for you? What really matters to you? Are you following your guidance? Are you following your heart? Are you connected back to your intuition? Does your heart call for whatever you're doing? Now, of course, this isn't talking about giving up your job and moving to India or anything drastic, unless that's what you feel called to do. And it's really about connecting within, developing your own inner peace. But we don't live that way. And most people dismiss it, or at least a lot of people simply say, well, that's Pollyannish. Instead of connecting with the stillness, instead of letting go of the stress, and then we just add more stress on top of the old stress and wonder why it seems so chaotic. And Henry Nguyen says, a waiting person is a patient person. The word patience means the willingness to stay where we are and live the situation out to the full in the belief that something hidden there will manifest itself to us. So truly spending time and connect to the silence within ourselves, connect to the stillness, letting go of the need to be busy to protect ourselves from that stillness, because that's where we'll learn about ourselves. That's where we'll be able to be a witness. That's where we'll be able to do our shadow work. And that's very important. We're really looking to tip the scales in favor again of self-encouragement, self-awareness. Stop being avoidant, stop being defensive. And that's what the busyness is likely covering up. We're so busy being busy, we're not noticing our patterns. And even if you're doing what I was describing as arriving early, that's still a pattern, but unconsciously giving myself time to have stillness and peace. Now that I'm recognizing that, I can do it differently and decide, well, I'm scheduling my time now so I have time to rest and relax before whatever it is I'll be engaged in later, so I can be my best self. So instead of connecting to the external conditioning, we can start to notice what matters to us internally, and to notice who we actually are instead of being in that busy role. So questions that are important tonight, you might ask yourself, where do I feel insecure? Where do I feel disconnected? Where do I feel unsupported? Where do I feel nervous or anxious? And where do I feel separate? So to look at some of those for yourself and begin to ask, is my busyness keeping me insecure or disconnected, for instance? And just to notice what it's connected to, and be willing to step out of always moving and find time to take care of yourself, find time to take care of me, and include things in your life that you enjoy. So instead of simply seeing it happen before your eyes, or waiting until some specific time, like you're done with school, or you've starting your business, or done raising kids, or retired, whatever it is, stop waiting. Busyness keeps us from being in our life now and disconnected. And when we're telling ourselves, when I have this project done, I can do X, Y, and Z. No, the time to do X, Y, and Z is now, even while you're doing your current project. It's making the best of today and truly living from your heart, connected to your heart, listening to your spirit, listening to your heart, listening to your mind. And the question then becomes, what would we do if we had more time? We're always rushing around, telling ourselves we don't have enough time, we're so busy, but we'd only fill it with more busyness, more doing, more moving. So to look at that habit, how we're always filling whatever time we have with stuff, and then we can't rest, we can't slow down. It takes us hours to fall asleep. We're our own worst enemies. We're in conflict with ourselves, and therefore we can probably start conflict with others very easily. We're unsatisfied, we're numb, not connected, and maybe even oblivious to the life that's going on around us. And then it becomes easier to respond to other life cues reflexively and get connected into the pattern or habit, rather than being aware of how we feel and what we feel triggered to do. We tie ourselves up in knots, and then it's difficult to begin to loosen up all those snarls. Instead of allowing silence and contemplation, we just become busy. Consider if you spent 5 minutes of silence when you wake up, or 5 minutes of meditation, or a walk outside. I guess you might try to unplug. We can't really get to our inner thoughts when all the static and noise pushes them away. So turning off the electronics and stepping away from them for a period of time each day. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's a half hour. And then you'll have time to allow the silence in and the contemplation in. You might begin to journal and connect with any of your inner voices that are critical or damaging and befriend them. You might journal them. But let go of the shoulds, such as I should be doing this, or everyone else is doing that, I think I should too. Stop overloading your list and start to find a way to bring gratitude and appreciation into your life. And that might be able to happen more readily when you begin to make time and space for yourself to actually slow down and notice what's happening for yourself internally and externally. And basically they're all the same. When it's chaotic inside, it's likely chaotic on the outside. So begin to notice what your inner critic, for instance, is saying, and then let it go. Its only true job is to keep you disconnected, and it's not really helping you to slow down because it's probably telling you you're not going fast enough. So to notice that, and then notice your inner director or inner dictator, and notice what it's telling you about your productivity. And it might be telling you there's no time for rest or frivolity. But, of course, there is. Your inner pleaser might be telling you that you have to do for others or you'll make them upset if you don't do something. And you're secretly pulling your hair out even when you're trying to make the other people happy. And you're chronically stressed. So, to notice even that, those, of course, there's other voices that are positive, but to notice all the voices, and you can't really do that if you're constantly in motion. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. Eckhart Tolle. So meditating can definitely help you to learn to bring calm into your life, and you can do that however you like. I'm simple and like to just sit in silence, light a candle, but you can play music, and there's various ways to meditate. You can lie down, you can do a walking meditation that I've talked about in the past. But when you're calm, you release endorphins, serotonin is replenished, stress hormones reduce, your blood pressure is lowered, breathing is improved, which all of this is related to what Dr. Herbert Benson called the relaxation response. So you're really letting go of the what we call the fight versus flight mode, and this helps you to step out of the busyness. However you can bring calm into your life, and meditating is one way. Laughter, exercise, feeling loved, being in relationship are of course other ways, but it's about recognizing that you're being busy to not be calm and to not connect inward, and to recognize that these things can definitely help. So although you might unplug, you could still spend half an hour watching a particular comedy on DVD, for instance. And that might be a good practice over a month, and just notice how you might feel lighter, happier, and maybe even include others in the practice and see what happens. Whatever helps you to generate feelings of expansiveness, of lightness, of quietness, stillness, and calm. And always remember that that regular meditation can change your brain structure. If you're interested in this, you might read some of the books and research on Matthew Ricard, and he's done quite a bit of research with the neuroscientists, and to show them, he's a monk, to show them the structure of his brain. And I've talked about him in the past. And that will allow us to deal with stress better and improve our ability to focus, give us deeper self-control, really help us to be more aware of ourselves overall. And that's really what's important here, is to find a way to bring that awareness into your life. And that might be through meditation for you, that might be through journaling, that might be through spending more time outside, unplugged, and just connecting to nature. And perhaps studying some fields related to nature, such as learning more about animals, learning about how stories about animals, because they can have stories of, I'm talking about myths and folklores, they can have relevant information for our lives today. So you might start to look at perhaps Native American stories that might help you to really recognize something about yourself. And Jack Kornfield says, when we get too caught up in the business of the world, we lose connection with one another and ourselves. And that's, again, what we're looking at tonight. How are we disconnected from not only ourselves, but our relationships? How are we not there for our families, our friends, and how can we show up and be more present? And what people tell me often when I talk about meditation with them is they might say that it's too hard, too difficult, can't find a time because they're so busy. Where can I fit it in? And that's kind of almost silly in a way, if we can begin to laugh at ourselves and say, I'm keeping myself so busy that I don't even have time to meditate. Well, like as I mentioned earlier, you can schedule yourself 5 minutes in the morning when you get up and do it then, and gradually increase and expand your time meditating as you gain experience. And that's only one way. You can have a walking meditation, so instead of eating your lunch at your desk or inside, go outside and eat lunch as you walk, and try to, as I talked about mindful eating a few weeks ago, you can try to mindfully eat your lunch as you stroll through the park. And you can do that with a partner or by yourself, and those are ways in which you can expand your awareness of yourself and your patterns around being busy and habitually disconnected, to looking within and noticing the still, quiet space within, and to notice what that might be connected to. And that brings up a topic which we'll talk about. We have about 2 minutes until break, and that's rest. Finding time for slowing down and not doing anything at all, just resting. And that's a big issue for many people, because they simply don't feel that if they stop, they can't stop, because there's too much to do, too much on their plate, and they have to keep moving and moving and moving, or no one will help them. And that's also related to the rest, is being able to say, I need help. Being able to be vulnerable and say, I can't do this alone, and look outside. Ask for. That doesn't mean it'll be immediate, but people will see that you're admitting to being human, to do everything yourself. So stepping forward and truly palms up, asking for outside support. And we'll talk more about this when we get back from the break. Thanks for tuning in.
Cause we're awakened, you won't catch us sleeping.
You're listening to the Awaken Radio Network. Visit the station's website at www.awakenradio.net. Our navigation links are located at the top of the page under the banner. Visit our forums to converse with our hosts. See who our guests will be on the interview page. You can join in the conversations on a live chat room page. Thank you for listening to Awaken Radio Network. Awaken Radio Network is a radio station focused on reminding you how powerful you are. Our hosts share on self-healing, politics, UFOs, spiritual awakening, and everything in between. Join us in the chat room at awakenradio.net or listen on your mobile device through tunein.com. Awaken Radio Network is brought to you by our advertisers, sponsors, hosts, and listeners like you who shop at our on-site store and make donations to the station. Visit awakenradio.net to chat, shop, and donate. Thank you for keeping the energy flowing and the growth going.
Welcome. You are now tuned in to Your Unfolding Senses on Awakened Radio. I'm your host, Ragozzine. This show is all about opening to and listening to your full intuitive capabilities. I offer tips and techniques such as meditation, dream work, and more for relaxing and connecting to your intuition. I'm on the air Thursday at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. This show is brought to you by intuitionbyrob.net, helping you to connect to your own inner wisdom. Please enjoy the show and invite your friends. Welcome back. Tonight we're talking about being busy, busyness, and if you have a question about how this impacts your life and what you can do about it, you can call 334-649-7204 or at Awakened Radio to Skype or type a question into the chat room. Come to awakenradio.net and click in the live chat tab. Now, this week I've had a more full schedule than normal, but I realized I couldn't finish everything, so I allowed myself to take rest periods. And the exercise this week that I recommend is to notice when you're tired and possibly go take a nap or a rest. Maybe not if you're at work, but then maybe think about once in a while going home or going outside and breathing in fresh air. The next question is, we think about when we're busy is, can we be alone? A lot of the reason that we're busy is because we desperately want to connect with others, but that's not necessarily a way to connect. We're not even connecting with ourselves. And if we start to look at it, we might see that we're incapable of being alone or of any work that requires genuine solitude. We're addicted to our entertainment. We're addicted to the busyness. And again, I invite you to look at how you might begin to slow down and settle in to the silence. And as an exercise, as I was mentioning, you might try silence for 5 minutes or an hour a day, just doing whatever you do, but in silence. Maybe cook dinner in silence, so turn off the TV, radio, games, phone, no media, disconnect. Notice what the inner voices, especially the inner critic, starts to say when you do that. Like somebody might call, for instance. You might constantly hear in your head, someone's going to call, someone's going to call. And if you tell people that you're going to be scheduling an hour of downtime a day, then they won't call. They'll wait until your time is over. So just to notice what happens when you begin to disconnect. You feel like you're going to miss something, like something's going to happen that you can't control, and within that time span, the whole world will end. Just to notice what feelings, what emotions come up as you tell yourself that you're going to disconnect, and spend time connecting to your heart and bringing compassion in if that's what's needed, and to really slow down and notice your breath, notice how you're holding yourself as you attempt to do this. Perhaps for the first time you do the 5 minutes or 10 minutes and not a whole hour, but try making room for silence to really slow down, to allow that empty space to unfold within your life, and to notice what you want to fill it up with. But you can't begin to notice that unless you begin to experience it. So this might be time you can spend journaling or sitting in silence, pure silence, and just contemplating or letting whatever needs to come to you to come, and to connect to all of your senses and let that happen. So it's really up to you and how you feel able to attempt this exercise. It might be that you need to do it with a partner, or that you do it just for 5 minutes, but just to notice the benefits that you begin to feel. You might feel less edgy the next day, you might feel less stressed, you might feel like you actually can begin to miss that silence after it's over, and then you know that's when you truly connected inward. And that will give you time to begin to ask more important questions and to do the shadow work. Because when you disconnect, that's what gets us to the place where we can begin to sit down and ask ourselves questions such as, what is important in my life and what's less important? So perhaps we're doing activities for lots of parents out there who are helping their children with sports and various activities that the kids tell them they're not even interested in being involved with. So to question, is this important? Will my child be wounded if we stop doing this particular activity? There are quite a few more. So just to notice that, for instance. And begin to notice at the end of the day, if you have a to-do list, what's still on there? And why is it on there? If you never get to it, maybe you'll never get to it, or maybe other people can do that particular task if you don't get to it often. So that's where asking for help can definitely come in. And there's tons of apps and applications that can help you to manage your to-do list. Tons of date books and calendars, but do we even need them? For some, yes, perhaps you do need them to keep yourself from pulling your hair out, but to begin to look at, are they helpful, or are they keeping you plugged in and into the same cycle day in, day out? So to begin to look at what you can let go of and move past as far as scheduling. What needs to be scheduled, what doesn't have to be scheduled, what can I say, I'm not scheduling that anymore, for yourself, for your family, and just begin to notice what happens when you schedule less. And of course, as we're talking about scheduling, and we talked about laughter before, it might be good to schedule in some fun. So every single day, put something that's fun to do on your calendar. It could be 2 minutes, it could be 10 hours. Pick amount of time in a day that feels good for you, and make sure that you treat that time as special every day and honor that commitment to yourself every day. I don't watch much television or go to many movies, but I do some online streaming, and I do talk with friends about their favorite shows, so I have a list of shows I can catch up on, and I usually schedule some time, especially during the weekends, to watch 1 or 2 episodes. Sometimes I just watch 20 minutes, sometimes a little more, but they're a lot of fun. And especially in the winter when it's too cold to really do anything. But now looking at how I can go and engage more in, as I was talking about, nature, and to really recognize that the aspects of nature for myself that are rejuvenating, that are healing, that sitting in silence, so I can connect with nature, connect with myself, and really enjoy the process. And sometimes I forget about that, and when I go to the park and schedule time to do that and journal or draw, that's fun for me. So it might be something simple like that for you, or just going to the park or the beach and sticking your feet in the sand and watching the waves. That's something that I'd like to do too, so definitely that nature and the waves and the patterns are both lulling and relaxing and can help you connect inward. You might also, as it's the fall, at least in the northern hemisphere, you might take drives to see the leaves changing color, or other seasonal activities, especially good in the cold weather like skiing or whatever you like to do. So connecting with nature, obviously, depends on where you live in the world and what's happening at this time. And in the Northeast, where I am, the leaves are not changing color yet, but soon will be. So that's something a lot of people like to do in this area. In April 2012, Real Simple magazine had a study that discovered that women who set aside free time on a regular basis, even after not finishing all their chores, were happier, more cheerful, and more optimistic about life. So that's available from Real Simple magazine, an interesting study there. And another study from Northwestern University was participants involved in watching a funny movie, and then they did puzzles afterwards, and they did better than those who watched another type of movie, such as a horror film or something else other than a funny movie. So humor, laughter definitely have a place in our world, but we don't let it in. So begin to let it in, however that works or speaks to you. And Steve Mirabali says, "Forget yesterday. It has already forgotten you. Don't sweat tomorrow. You haven't even met. Instead, open your eyes and your heart to a truly precious gift today. So enjoy today to the best of your abilities, and be willing to ask yourself, what's important to me, and find ways to bring activities in that allow you to enjoy what's important even more. But it's not doing it to the point of being neurotic or telling yourself that, yes, I have to do it. Yes, you can make a commitment to yourself to schedule these things, but we're talking about being busy here. So with that in mind, it's not about forcing yourself to do something at a frantic, busy pace. It's allowing the time and space for it to happen. So not managing your time such that you're busy all the way up until you're taking time out not to be busy and then being busy right afterwards. It's about settling down and slowing down into your life and reviewing and asking what's important, but waiting for that answer and beginning to look at how that answer can shape your life in a new way. Does it mean sitting all day in silence and putting your head in the sand? No. It's giving up the state of busyness, but it doesn't mean you're not going to be active, creative, and inventive. That's why you're busy in the first place, because you may have a yearning to bring something out into the world, but you're not connecting inward. You're not asking for what wants to be created. What's your purpose? How are you connecting to your purpose? And that's where the stillness, the settling in helps, is to connect into your heart and to ask, as I said before, what matters, but also what wants to be created in the world. What do I yearn to create in the world? And you can't get there unless you get to the stillness and connect to your heart and make finding the answer an important part of your life. And you could discuss this with your partner, with your friends, with your family, and see what they want to create in the world, and maybe you build something together. And it's really about giving up the mentality that you can't relate to what's in front of you, what's inside of you, because of the constant mental chatter, the constant activity that tells you you can't slow down because you haven't done what you wanted to do yet. But you don't even know what that is most of the time. So beginning to release, let go, step away from some of the activities that don't matter as much. And we really need to address this if we want to be good to ourselves or anyone else and truly have relationships that matter and allow ourselves to create things that matter. And as we talked about habits last week, it's easier to change the habits, and I'm talking about changing them because just to notice a lot of your habits around busyness might not be good enough unless you change the behavior and the routine that you run in your body, in your mind, in your world when you're queued up. And the book that I mentioned last week from Charles Duhigg gives a great example about Alcoholics Anonymous, explaining the cues and reward system. So a cue is a trigger, and when you're in the Alcoholics Anonymous, they explain the cue of being stressed tells you to go to the bar and have a drink. And then your reward is socializing and having a chance to lessen your anxiety. So you can keep the same cue and reward, but instead of going to a bar, you go to a meeting. So to notice your busyness, and instead of feeling like you need to go to another challenge, another activity, you might say, I'm really feeling called to do more work. I think I might take a break instead. And to notice when you really, really, really feel stressed, that might be the time to say, instead of doing more work, instead of filling my plate even more, I'm going to change my behavior and take some time off. And I will have a reward of feeling better about myself because I've done something good for myself. And it actually is good because I'm resting, I'm rejuvenating, and that might help you to begin to change some patterns. And that might help you to begin to notice the patterns stirred up by your ego, by your inner critic, and that helps you to let go of living in the past, judging, and constant planning. What if? Instead be in the current experience and be present and be connected in our thoughts, be disconnected from the stress loop and wearing down our bodies, because when we're stressed, as I was talking about before, we have a whole chemical cocktail released, chemical and hormonal cocktail released through our body, no matter your age or your sex, it doesn't matter. The stress hormones and the kidneys and all the organs are working overtime to process all of the soup that's released when we're stressed. So to use that time when you're stressed to listen to what's going on inside and to notice the judging, the past, and to say, well, I'm living in the now. And that's when you start to notice what's happening with the stress, and you can start to have new patterns and to recognize the potential of the healing benefit of those patterns. And you can use stress to say, as I was mentioning earlier, that you can take time out to ask, what do I need in my life? What do I feel called to create? And to connect with those feelings, with those yearnings. And to step away from the constant negative thoughts and negative voices. Those only create tension, create stress. And as we're talking about scheduling and being busy, instead of saying, I'm going to be late, to start to ask, why do I feel, what's the punishment for being late? And maybe you can call people, maybe you can begin to lighten up your schedule so that you're early on occasion, and just to begin to notice your patterns, notice your urgency to be somewhere else. Just this week I caught myself as I was picking up some produce and standing in line at the end of the day as a farm stand, and I almost left because I knew it seemed like it would be at least 10 or 20 minute wait. There's only one person at the cash register and a mob of people ahead of me, and I almost let myself count the seconds. I probably could stand there for hours, but there's always moments when the time starts to be counted unconsciously. And the line was moving, and I was almost last. And it was hot, but fans were blowing, so there were certain spots where it was cool and kind of okay to be just standing there. And the whole time, there was a woman with her 3 to 4 year old son behind me. He wasn't screaming, but he was clearly really getting uncomfortable and edgy. Each checkout was taking a few minutes, as I was saying. Each one was different. Some were paid by check, cash, card. Some produce went back, or something was found. It was interesting. As I approached the counter, I had heard him getting more and more uncomfortable, and I was telling myself, being cynical, that I could offer them my spot, but one spot wouldn't help them. But then I ignored that voice, and I gave the woman my spot. And then I had the thought that, 5 minutes might not mean anything to me or her, but to the boy, the 5 minutes might seem like hours. I was able to let go of the feeling that I had to be somewhere else. I had to get out of there, because I was feeling that. But then I was able to center and realize that someone else needed to be out of there more than me. So to find that still place within you, that quiet place, you can begin to recognize these patterns. That's one of them, the urge to be somewhere else, the need to be somewhere else. But why? To notice our habits and patterns. So as an exercise, you might notice in the next couple of days how often that you tell yourself that you need to be somewhere else, or you only have 5 minutes, or you're late, and to notice what feelings are connected to those thoughts as you have them. And then pay attention to how often you say, well, it's always like that, or it runs in my family, for instance. We spend so much time talking about what doesn't work that we miss the whole point. And that's namely that we have power to create something that does matter. And that begins when we can begin to lessen our stress, lessen our anxiety, and begin to listen to our hearts. And that's the ending of our show for tonight. But let me share my links with you. So you can go to intuitionbyrob.net, click on the media button, and get to my forum page here where you can read about past shows and make comments and ask questions about those shows. And I really encourage you to do that. And we're starting to get more and more comments. So thank you for comments that you've left. I really appreciate that. There's a link to my show page there so you can listen to past shows. You can come to the Awakened Radio store. You can come to my Facebook page and my Twitter account for the show where I tweet about and post about what I'm going to be talking about this week on the show. And of course, if you come to awakenedradio.net, at the top of all the pages are donate buttons. So if you're so inclined and you've enjoyed our shows, donations are always greatly appreciated. We're here for no cost to you, so please find it in your heart to click the donate button at the top of all the screens. We just passed the deadline for Drive Magazine, which is our magazine where we accept articles, art, and poetry. So if you have anything that you'd like to contribute for next month, that deadline will be October 10th. Or you can read this month's magazine on Awakened Radio. Just click on the Thrive Magazine link at the top of the page, and there'll be PDFs which you can read on the Awakened Radio page that you link to. You can join us and be a sponsor if you like, and you've enjoyed this show or past shows here at Awakened Radio, and you'll basically have a 30-second audio clip which will be played at the start of the show, at the middle of the show, and at the end of the show. And when the show goes into archives, it'll be left in, so it'll be played indefinitely, and the shows are archived to iTunes. So definitely a great chance to advertise your like-minded business, and it's also played in our rebroadcast throughout the month. So please find it in your heart to sponsor a show if you feel compelled to do so. And if you have a question, as I mentioned, about busyness this week, feel free to contact me on my website or via Twitter and LinkedIn, and I'm more than willing to make time to answer your questions about busyness. Not enough of us spend any time at all in meditation, and there's plenty of tools and techniques that are available that can let us do that don't just involve sitting. And what I didn't get to tonight is actually being a person that feels like they're called to be involved, but not seeing that anybody else wants to help. So really, those are the most important people to take heed and find a way to rest and rejuvenate, because it doesn't help to be constantly busy and destroy your immune system and your health, and then you don't have any time to take care of your inner or your outer needs at all. So there's plenty of ways we can look at this, and it doesn't matter who you are or your age or your background. It's finding a way to open to your heart and making room in your life for stillness, to allow time for rest, time for rejuvenation, and letting go of the stress that we face every day of our lives. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week at 10.